That shovel in your shed, the one with the orange crust creeping up the blade, the handle gone gray and splintery. You think it's done. You think you'll be buying a new one come spring. You won't, because a $4 spray can keep that same tool working for 40 years, maybe longer. I've got a hoe in my barn older than I am, and it still bites the ground clean. That's not a sales pitch. That's just how my people have always done it, and here is the part that ought to make you a little angry. The folks who sell you a new shovel every few seasons, the big stores stacking shiny tools by the door every March, they have no reason on this earth to tell you what I'm about to tell you. Why would they? A tool that lasts 40 years is a tool they only sell you once. So stay with me, because right around the middle of this, I'm going to show you the exact trick my grandfather used to bring a rusted, seized up, left for dead tool back to life for less than the price of a cup of coffee. Stick around for that part. It's the one most folks have never heard, but first, do me one small favor. Drop your state in the comments. Just your state, that's all. Pennsylvania, Texas, Ohio, wherever you're sitting. I want to see where everybody watching this keeps their tools, because dampness changes everything, and I'll come back and answer some of you myself. Now let me take you back. I was raised in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, plain family, no electricity running to the house, no power tools humming in the shop. When you live that way, a tool isn't a thing you throw out, it's a thing you keep. My grandfather had a workbench at the back of the barn, and every fall, after the last of the harvest was in, he'd line up every hoe, every spade, every pair of shears on that bench, and he'd doctor each one, slow and careful, the way the English doctor an old clock. I used to think it was a waste of an evening. I was a boy. I didn't understand yet. I understand now. Because here's what nobody in the modern world wants to sit and reckon with. The tools your grandfather used are mostly gone, thrown in landfills, rusted to nothing. But the tools my grandfather used are still hanging on the wall of that barn. Same steel, same wood, 80, 90 years on, and the only difference between his tools and yours is about 10 minutes of work and a few cents worth of something you can buy at any hardware store in America. Let me tell you what's really killing your tools. Because once you understand the enemy, the fix makes perfect sense. It's not use. You'd think it's the digging, the chopping, the years of hard work. It isn't. A tool that gets used and put away right will outlast a tool that sits clean in a dry shed. The thing that kills steel is the thing you can't see. It's the air itself. Iron wants to go back to the ground. That sounds strange, but it's the truth of it. Steel is mostly iron, and iron is dug out of the earth as rust, more or less. Men put a lot of fire and labor into pulling the rust out and making clean, strong metal. And from the very second that metal is born, it is trying to crawl back to what it was. The oxygen in the air, the moisture in a damp shed, the little bit of salt left on the blade from the sweat of your hands, all of it pulls that iron back toward rust. Slow, patient, every single day. That orange crust on your shovel, that's iron. Going home, that's your $40 tool, turning back into dirt one flake at a time. Now here's where the money part gets ugly. A landscaper, a real working one, knows this. He buys good steel and he protects it, because his tools are his living and he can't afford to replace them every spring. But the average homeowner was never taught any of this. Nobody sat you down. Nobody showed you. And the store sure didn't, because you're forgetting is their whole business model. They'd rather sell you a new spade for $35 in April than sell you a $4 bottle of oil that makes the old one last the rest of your life. I'm not saying there's a man in a back room plotting against you. It's simpler and quieter than that. It's just that nobody profits from teaching you to keep what you already own. And so the knowledge slips away. Not because it stopped working, because it stopped making anybody money. My people never stopped using it. That's all. We just kept doing the plain thing while the world forgot. So what is it? What's in the $4 bottle? It's linseed oil, boiled linseed oil to be exact. You'll find it at any hardware store, often for $4 or $5 for a bottle that'll last you years. And here's a thing that always made me smile. Linseed oil is just flax oil, pressed from flaxseed, and my people grew flax in these Pennsylvania fields going back 200 years for the linen and for the oil both. So when the English finally rediscover this stuff and act like it's some clever new trick, I just nod. We were pressing it out of the ground before there was a hardware store to buy it from. Now let me tell you why it works. Because this is the part that's almost beautiful once you see it. Most oils you put on metal just sit there, wet and greasy. They wipe off, they drip off, they collect dust, and in a few weeks they're gone and the rust comes right back. Cooking oil does this. It even goes rancid and sticky and gums up the works. That's not what you want. Linseed oil is different, and here's the magic of it. Linseed oil dries, not like water drying, evaporating away. It dries by pulling oxygen out of the air and changing, hardening, turning from a liquid into a tough, thin, flexible skin right there on the surface of your steel. The chemists have a long word for it. They call it polymerization. All it means is the oil knits itself together into something solid, like a clear coat of armor, thin as a coat of paint, locked onto the metal. And here's why that armor beats the rust. Remember, rust needs oxygen and moisture to touch the bare iron. The linseed skin seals the iron off. The air can't reach it. The damp can't reach it. The salt from your hands can't reach it. You've shut the door that iron was trying to crawl through. The metal can't go home anymore because you've sealed the road. The old farm bulletins knew this. The agricultural folks at the land-grant colleges, Penn State and the others, they tested boiled linseed oil on tool handles and bare metal more than 50 years ago and wrote it down plain. They found that a properly cured linseed finish kept moisture out and stopped checking and cracking in wood and slowed rust on steel to a crawl. Penn State's own extension still tells folks to rub boiled linseed oil into wood handles to this day. It was never a secret to the people who study it. It only became a secret to the people who buy things. Now let me give you the exact way to do it, because doing it wrong wastes your oil and your time. First, the tool has to be clean and dry. If there's loose dirt, knock it off. If there's a little surface rust, and I'll show you how to handle bad rust in a minute, scuff it off with some steel wool or a wad of crumpled aluminum foil dipped in a little water. You don't need to make it shine like a mirror. You just need the loose stuff gone and the metal dry. Wet metal under oil traps the moisture inside, and that's the one mistake that ruins everything. Then you pour a little oil, a small amount, the size of a quarter, onto a clean rag. An old cotton shirt works fine. You rub it onto the whole blade, both sides, thin. Thin is the word to remember. You are not painting it. You are not soaking it. You want a coat so light it almost looks like nothing. A thick coat of linseed oil stays gummy and tacky for days and never hardens right. A thin coat dries hard and tough. You let it sit. Wipe off any extra. After about 15 minutes, anything that hasn't soaked in. Then you leave it somewhere with a little air for a day. By the next day, it's dry to the touch. Do it twice if you want real armor. A second thin coat the next day. 2 thin coats beat 1 thick coat every time. Now here is something nobody warns the English about, and I won't let you skip it. Those oily rags. When linseed oil dries, it gives off a little heat because that knitting together I told you about is a slow burn of a kind. A wadded up oily rag left in a pile can get hot enough on its own to catch fire. That's not me trying to scare you. That's a real thing that has burned down real barns. So when you're done, you lay that rag out flat outside over the edge of a bucket or on the concrete, let it dry stiff and harmless, and then you can throw it away. Never ball it up and toss it in a can. My grandfather drilled that into me when I was 9 years old, and I've never forgotten it. Do this once a year in the fall, the way my grandfather did at that workbench. 10 minutes a tool. And the rust simply stops. The thing that was eating your shovel can't get to it anymore. And that knowledge, the kind that keeps what you own working for decades, is exactly what we've gathered into something you can hold in your hands. If you want the full collection of these plain methods written out and organized so nothing gets lost, I put together 2 books, The Garden Blueprint, which covers old-fashioned pest cures that cost pennies, and The Harvest Blueprint, which goes deep into Amish soil and storage secrets for bigger yields. They're also available together as the Complete Garden Field Edition. Everything's linked in the description. And at $97, it costs less than 2 seasons of tools you didn't need to replace. It's the kind of reference my grandfather would have kept on that workbench right next to the linseed oil. But right now, let me take you to the part I promised at the very beginning, the exact trick my grandfather used to bring a rusted, seized up, left for dead tool back to life. Now, I can already hear some of you. You're thinking, that's fine for a brand new shovel, but my tools are already rusty, my handles are already gray and cracked and splintering into my palms. This is for somebody starting fresh, not for me with a shed full of tools that already look rough. No, this is exactly for you. In fact, it works even better on your old tools. And let me tell you why and what to do this very weekend. An old tool that's been used hard has what the metalworkers call tooth. The surface isn't slick and sealed like a new factory finish. It's a little rough, a little open, a little porous from years of work, and that rough surface drinks the linseed oil in deep. A new tool with a slick coating actually takes the oil less willingly. Your beat-up old spade is thirsty. It's been waiting years for somebody to give it a drink. So here's your weekend job, and you need nothing you don't already have. Take the rusty tool, get yourself a little white vinegar, the plain cheap kind from the kitchen, $1 or $2 a jug. If the blade is small, like pruners or a trowel, drop the whole metal end in a jar of vinegar and let it sit overnight, 8 to 12 hours. The vinegar is a mild acid, and it eats the rust loose without hurting the good steel underneath. By morning, that orange crust wipes off with a rag and a little scrubbing. For a big shovel blade, soak a rag in vinegar and lay it right across the rusty part and leave it a few hours, wetting it again if it dries. Once the rust is off, you rinse it, and here's the step you cannot skip. You dry it completely, bone dry. Set it in the sun or wipe it hard with a dry towel, because that fresh clean metal will flash right back to rust in an hour if you leave it wet. Vinegar clean steel is hungry for rust more than ever for those first few hours. So you dry it, and then immediately you give it that thin coat of linseed oil while it's still warm and dry. Warm metal, by the way, drinks the oil even better. Sun-warmed or just warm from your hands, the oil flows thinner and reaches deeper into all that tooth I told you about. And the handle, don't forget the wood, that gray, dried out, splintery handle isn't dead either. Wood goes gray and cracks because it's lost its natural oils to the sun and the dry air. You rub the same boiled linseed oil straight into the bare wood, and you'll watch it drink it up like a dry sponge takes water. The gray darkens back to honey color right in front of you. The little splinters lay back down, 2 or 3 coats over a couple days, and that handle is smooth and strong and won't give your palms grief anymore. The wood actually gets a little stronger because the oil hardens inside the grain just like it does on the steel. So in one weekend, with a jug of vinegar and a $4 bottle of oil, you take a shed full of tools you were ready to throw away, and you bring every one of them back. That's $100, $200 of tools rescued for the price of a sandwich. And not rescued for one season, rescued for the rest of your life if you keep up the 10 minutes a year. Now, I told you at the start I'd give you the one trick most folks have never heard. The thing my grandfather did at that back workbench that even a lot of careful gardeners don't know, here it is. Lean in for this one. He kept a bucket of sand by the barn door, just an ordinary 5-gallon bucket filled most of the way with clean, dry builder's sand, the coarse kind. And into that sand, he poured a good slug of oil and worked it through until the whole bucket of sand was just barely damp with it, not wet, just enough that a handful held together when you squeezed it and fell apart when you let go. And every single time he came in from the field, before he hung up a hoe or a spade, he'd plunge the blade down into that sand 3-4 times. In and out. That was it. Then he hung it up. Think about what that one motion does all at once. The sand is like 1,000 little scrubbers, and as the blade goes in and out, the grit scours off the wet mud and the day's grime, polishing the metal clean. At the very same time, that oil worked through the sand wipes a fresh, thin film onto the blade. So the tool comes out of the bucket cleaner and oiled in a single second. It cleans and it protects in the same motion every day automatically. You can't forget to do it because it's part of putting the tool away. By the time it reaches the wall, it's already done. That's the secret. A bucket of sand and oil by the door. My grandfather did it, his father did it before him, and I do it today. It costs you almost nothing. A bag of sand is a couple dollars and lasts years, and it is the single reason a working tool can go 40 years and look like it's got 40 more in it. Now, the old-timers used motor oil in that bucket, and you'll still hear that. I'll be honest with you, plain as I can, these days a lot of folks would rather not put motor oil on a tool that's going into a vegetable garden, and I don't blame them. So you can use a vegetable-based oil for the bucket, or a bit of that linseed oil, or even just keep the bucket lightly oiled with mineral oil from the drugstore, the same kind folks use on a cutting board. The principle is what matters. Sand to clean, oil to seal, one motion every day. That's the recovered piece. That's the thing the stores will never put on a sign. And here's why I call it recovered and not just old. Because this knowledge didn't fade because it failed. It faded because it worked too well. A man with a sand bucket by his door doesn't buy a new shovel every few years. He doesn't need to. So nobody had any reason to keep the idea alive, to print it on packaging, to teach it to the next fellow at the garden center. It just quietly dropped out of the world the way a lot of plain, sensible things did. The only places it survived are the places that never chased the new thing in the first place. Places like the barn I grew up in. Let me tie it all together for you, because I don't want you to lose a single piece of it. Iron wants to return to rust. Air and moisture are what carry it there. Boiled linseed oil, $4 a bottle, dries into a hard, thin skin that seals the metal off and slams that door shut. You clean the tool, you dry it dead dry, you rub on a thin coat, you let it cure, and you handle your oily rags safe so they can't catch fire. For tools already rusted, vinegar from your kitchen lifts the rust for pennies, and the same oil saves the wood handle while you're at it. And the crown of the whole thing, the bucket of sand and oil by the door, so that cleaning and sealing happen every day without you even thinking about it. That's the entire method. There's nothing held back. No special product I'm steering you toward, no secret brand, nothing with my name on it, just flax oil, vinegar, sand, and 10 minutes. The same 4 plain things that have kept the tools hanging in my family's barn working for the better part of a century. I want you to sit with what that really means for a minute, because it's bigger than shovels. You've been sold the idea that things wear out, that a tool has a life, and when its time comes, you go and buy another, and that's just how it is. But that idea was sold to you. It isn't true, not the way they made it sound. A good steel tool doesn't have a short life. It has a nearly endless one if somebody just shows you the 10 minutes of care it was always meant to have. The throwing away, the buying again, the steady drip of $40 here and $35 there, year after year, that wasn't necessary. That was a habit somebody profited from teaching you. And the quiet thing my people held on to all those years the rest of the world was busy replacing everything is simply this. You take care of what you're given, and it takes care of you back. Not because we're better than anybody. We just never had the money or the inclination to throw away a good thing, so we learned how to keep it. And it turns out keeping it was never hard. It was $4 and 10 minutes the whole time. So that's what you've got back today. Not a trick. Something that was quietly taken from you, sold off in little pieces every spring at the garden center, and you've got it back now. That shovel in your shed isn't garbage. It's an heirloom that nobody ever taught you to keep. Now you know, if you're the kind of person who'd rather fix the good thing you own than keep buying a worse new one, then you already belong here. That's who this is for. People who don't like being told that everything's disposable. People who suspect rightly that the plain old way usually worked better than the thing replacing it. So let me ask you again, and this time I really do want you to answer in the comments, because I read them and I'll write some of you back. Tell me your state and tell me your worst tool. The rustiest, sorriest, most given up on tool in your shed. Is it a pair of pruners seized shut? A spade gone half to crust? A handle so gray you get splinters every time you grab it? Drop it down below. Tell me what you're working with, and I'll tell you exactly how to bring that particular one back. No tool is too far gone for vinegar and a little flax oil. I mean, that show me the worst you've got. And if you'd like more of this, the plain ways my people kept things working long after the world said to throw them out, then come along with us. This isn't about following a channel. It's about a bunch of us, plain folks and English alike, getting back the practical know-how that quietly got sold away from regular people. Every bit of it is free. The way this kind of knowledge was always meant to be passed. Neighbor to neighbor, over a fence, with nothing changing hands. Next time, I'm going to show you the old way we kept a garden hose from ever cracking or rotting at the ends. The part that always splits first, with one thing you've already got under your kitchen sink. Most folks throw away 3 or 4 hoses in the time one of ours lasts. And the reason why is so simple. You'll be a little upset nobody told you sooner. But that's for next time. For now, go out to that shed, find the worst tool you own, and give it the 10 minutes it's been waiting years for. That orange crust isn't the end of the story. It never was. It was just the part where everybody else gave up, and the part where my grandfather, and now you, know better. I'll see you in the comments. Tell me your state, and tell me your rustiest tool. I'll be there. And one more thing before you go, because I don't want you to walk away thinking this is only about shovels and hoes. Everything in your shed answers to the same plain rule. The axe, the wheelbarrow's metal lip, the hinges on your garden gate, the shears, the loppers, the old hand saw your father left you. All of it is iron trying to crawl back to the ground, and all of it can be stopped with the same thin coat of oil and the same 10 minutes of care. Once you see it on one tool, you'll see it everywhere. You'll never look at rust the same way again. That's how it took hold in me as a boy. One tool, then the whole barn. So start with one, just one, the worst one, and let it teach you the rest. Go on now. That tool's been waiting long enough. That fall ritual my grandfather followed at his workbench. Inside the Amish field circle, I walk you through the whole thing, picking up right where this video stopped. You can ask me, Eli, your own question, and a real person answers. And you're not alone, old ways growers like you are already inside where you belong. Just point your phone's camera at the code on screen. Cancel any time with one click. If this helped you save your tools, there's plenty more where that came from. Go ahead and subscribe and take a look around. I've got more simple, old-fashioned tricks waiting for you right here.